Welcome to Foolish Kitchen's garden tour. Up here in Maine, a very short season, my yard is very wet in the mornings and it has really partial shade, so it's a struggle, but the struggle is the glory, as they say. Not really fond of this patio. I can't figure out how to grow more plants on it. So basically it bugs me. It's like, I want to dig it up. Okay. These are last minute addition. There are two different types of heirloom cucumbers. And when they get bigger, I'll transplant some of them into the garden, and the rest of them will stay in that trough, and I will move the trough over here. This is the herb bed. Try to coax as many perennials as possible to stay, and then I put the annuals in between. We've got chives and garlic chives, and cilantro, which always bolts. I can never have enough of that. And apparently marjoram is a beast. Who knew? And that just is loving it here. I've been dividing it up and giving pieces away, and that's Balm, which I don't really have a use for yet. And we got some rosemary and some French tarragon and winter savory, summer savory. Winter savory is somewhere over here. Oh, buried in there. The winter savory is a perennial. The summer is a soft bedding plant. Basil is not doing too great this year, but I only put in 2. I should have put in more. I always think I should have put in more. And I'm trying the marigolds I put the marigolds in between as a bug repellent. I don't know if it works, but they're pretty. We got some dill, and this is a new addition as an olive plant. I don't know, it smells like olives. I don't know, it was on sale. It was like the last wee one in the back. I always look in the garden greenhouses in the back on the corners for the sick plant that I'll get for almost nothing. Parsley, lots of parsley. I keep putting it in. This one here is a biennial, so this one here that we're looking at came back from last year. So hopefully we can coax the other ones. The dill always bolts and turns weedy and useless. I've got a couple of different kinds of sages. This sage bush I've had for like a really long time. I moved it from the last house. And then buried in here are a couple of different thymes. I had another kind of thyme in the patio, but and this is my mint. Mint is uncontrollable if you're not. It just will escape and take over your life. So you actually have to have mojitos. You actually have to. It's a rule. I think that's the French tarragon. I don't remember what that is right this second. But what is that down there? I did not plant any curly parsley, but apparently I did. Who knew? One of the things, that new bunch of dill is brand new this morning. I bought a bundle of it at the Asian grocery, and they all had root systems, so I threw them in the garden because it's a really good way to get them to last instead of in the fridge. In the fridge, if you don't use it right away, it's gone. These two beds are always mirrored, so that I can actually tell what's going on. Through the center lines, we have cherry tomatoes. Big tomatoes don't like my yard. Cherry tomatoes usually love it. Last year, not so much. And I have straight neck yellow squash and zucchini. And don't ask me why those are yellow. Those plants' leaves are yellow. I haven't figured that out yet, because all the plants are mirrored. So it's like, why are they yellow in this bed, not in that bed? I don't know. I'll figure it out and study it and actually add something. Last year I had a problem with zucchini being hollow at the blossom end, and apparently that's a lack of boron. So I added lack of boric acid, so I added borax this year. That is a LEEK that was left in my refrigerator, and I shoved it in the garden and said, okay, fend for yourself. And it seems to be doing nicely. I don't know if it'll ever make any baby leeks, but it's pretty. Same thing with these onion sets. They grow, the green parts grow. They even come back from last year, but I never seem to get the bulbs to grow. And those are some garlic, which probably came from the refrigerator. And I can come out and I can harvest them. I mean, even if they're not, you know, full size, they're still totally edible. I put them in salads and things all the time. And there's my lettuce bowl, which is necessary if you want to have lobster rolls. Just come out and pick a few. And that will bolt when it gets hot, so I try to eat up as much as I can. And these are mostly green onions from the grocery store that I throw in every year I threw a few more in, and then I kind of harvest them as I go and eat them. So these are from, I think these tall ones are from 2 years ago. And then the little shoots coming up are tender and tasty, but the flowers are very good for the pollinators. So it actually there's a reason for letting them get monster big like this. It's just to feed the bugs and encourage them. And here we have some more tomatoes. I think these cherry tomatoes are I think they're all Sungold. Might possibly be one of those red millions in there. I don't remember. More zucchini, yellow squash. And this is my experimental bed. Every year I try something different in this bed, rotate it. Like last year I did butternut squash, and for the amount of squash I got was not, you know, I don't really love it that much, but it was a lot of work and not very many squashes. So this year I have patty pan, which I have grown before, so they should be fine. They just look a little squalid. And those are, I believe, Roma grape. And peas are a new addition this year. I hadn't grown peas before here, but I think if this pea tower does well, next year I may put a whole bunch more, maybe in all the corners of all the beds. You know, they don't take up much room as far as the root system goes, they just go high. So, oh, there's the tower. I don't think they're going to get that tall, but those are the bamboo stakes I had left for them. As you can see, I use bamboo stakes. Some of them I've had for 20 years, and every few years I buy another bundle, and I tie them together at the top with a little hose gasket. So, and then I wind just garden twine, just twine, so that they grow up, and the tomatoes will grow up inside. I don't know if you can see that. So at the end of the season, I just cut all the twine and gather up all the sticks, and we store the sticks in a golf bag, and then the golf bag goes in the shed. So no tomato cages, no clutter, no getting bent and bent out of shape. And here is, yes, I haven't had my coffee. That is a clematis that came with the house, even though I moved this trellis from somewhere else. And I didn't realize that clematis had survived the addition of this porch. And I put this other clematis on this side. So that one is a white one. And the other one is a purple one with really big flowers. And this has got little tiny flowers. We want to just keep winding it up so that it supports itself. And last year they met in the middle, so I can sit out here under the flowers. But the clematis will die back every year, so it will not harm the house. Whereas I had a big climbing vine on the house when I bought it, and I finally managed to kill it and murder it and dig it up. And I put in clematis right there. Next year it'll do nicely. This year it's just sort of struggling because I just put it in. And I gave it this ladder to climb. And the ladder will come off the house and go in the shed for the winter. But there's a little azalea that I've moved a couple of times around the property, trying to find a home for it, and we're just happy. So right now it's in plant hospital. I just kind of trimmed off all the parts that were dying. First it was in too much shade, then I put it in too much sun. But I am coaxing some little tiny buds, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with that one. Every year I add in another rhubarb. That's this year's rhubarb. And 2 years ago's rhubarb. And last year's rhubarb. And with the azaleas I might put in another one. I might dig up that whole patio and put in another one. And we've got some morning glories growing up a trellis. And no, I don't remember what those plants are. And we have a little rose bush, which I thought I had cut all the way down to the ground, and still don't die. Peonies, hollyhocks. Whoop. Anyway, so that's what I've got growing this year in the garden. And the bamboo stakes, this is my anti-dog fence, and that's where the tent that I'll use for trellising those cucumbers. So I might put some inside and some on the outside. And there's one apple tree, and this is a new apple tree I just put in, which is probably too close. I'll think about that. I think if I just kind of trim them so that they both face opposite directions, that should be okay. But I didn't know I was getting the second one. The second one was practically a gift. It was just damaged and short, and so it has missing the top part. So the greenhouse trimmed it and then sold it to me for like $10. And what I'm going to do next spring is trim off this branch off this tree and graft it to this tree and make it taller. So the top part of it will be Liberty Apple and the bottom part of it will be Empire. But I just think that'll be a good experiment for next spring. And I counted, I have 12 of these little buggers on this tree. This is the first year I've had this tree. This I planted last year, so I'm very surprised to get 12. That's perfectly fine. And this is my ooh, we nabbed a couple. This is my anti-bug system. I shouldn't touch it. These yellow stickies are just that. They're just yellow and they're sticky. And they attract bugs that are attracted to zucchini and squash, and they're all from the same family, and they all make the same yellow flowers. So the yellow stickies attract the bugs that would feast on those plants. They're specifically, I mean, as you can see, most of the time I'm finding what's on them is beetles and a bunch of mosquitoes, which is fine. My biggest villain is the cucumber beetle, which is striped, and that's the one that really wants to eat my my vegetables. I'm catching some June bugs, some Japanese beetles. That's fine, but it's a nice passive little trappy way to deal with it. First year I had tons and tons of cucumber beetles, and then the last 2 years almost nothing, just a few. So as long as I keep them down to a dull roar, and it's a nice Sunday morning, and I'm going to go inside and bake. Thank you for joining me.